Hi everybody, Module 9. This week we are going to hit minimalism and maximalism. And so I've assigned a few readings that will get you into that terminology, and basically what I want here is I want you to be able to define what a minimalist is and what a maximalist is, and I want you to notice that these are not necessarily polar opposite things. Polar opposite groups. There's actually a spectrum. Like if you have minimalism here and maximalism there, not everybody's just going to congregate at the poles. They're going to be, scholars they're going to be somewhere in between. They might lean, one way of center or the other way of center. But I want you to get a feel for the fact that there's a spectrum between these two things. But the definitions of the polar destinations, if you will, are important. They're meaningful. So I want you to be able to define these terms, but also recognize that you can't necessarily really pigeonhole scholars at those poles. The other thing, and this won't really be as clear from the readings, but just to throw it in there, you might have a scholar who's a maximalist on one thing and a minimalist on another. It just depends what the subject is, the historical topic is. But generally, these are terms that are used in biblical scholarship, with respect to biblical archaeology especially, that are part of the discourse today, and so you should know what they mean. So after the definitional stuff, we have some articles by Kitchen, A Patriarchal Age, and then there's a response to Kitchen's article by Ronald Hendel, Finding Historical Memories in the Patriarchal Narratives, and then a response to Hendel by Kitchen, and then a little piece by Sarna Abram the Hebrew. Now, the class time is really going to focus on the Kitchen-Hendel exchange. So what I want you to get here is you should be able to sort of briefly list out what Kitchen's arguments are. Even if you don't completely understand them, I want you to be able to take note of what they are, and then note how Hendel tries to chip away at them or undermine them, and then of course how Kitchen responds. Now, Kenneth Kitchen was he's still alive. He's retired teaching now. He's an Egyptologist from the UK, but he also spent a great deal of time on just biblical history and how the patriarchs and the Exodus, the stuff in the book of Exodus, jives with ancient Near Eastern history more broadly. He's what would be called a British evangelical. He has a very high view of Scripture. Hendel does not. Hendel is more of a liberal critical scholar, but he's not an axe grinder either. We have to be fair to Hendel, but he's not where Kitchen's at. So I want you to read the exchange and see, again, what the arguments are, what the comebacks are, to each other, because I think what you're going to see here is that in some ways, and in some very specific instances, Hendel will sort of change the question, and he will criticize something that really isn't germane to what Kitchen is saying, or isn't quite what Kitchen is angling for. And I don't know that Hendel's doing that deliberately, but that will happen. That does happen, especially among amateurs, like on the internet, because we're sort of focusing on where you would run into these things in the course of this class. This is a tactic. This is a tactic that is used to try to win a debate or win an argument, but it's not really that honest, or it's misguided because maybe there's a misunderstanding that's going on here. So I want you to take note of how that's done. But that, in a nutshell, that's it. Sarna, Abram the Hebrew, I think that's just interesting as to what a Hebrew was, what the term means, where it comes from, why it's applied. That's useful when it comes to the patriarchal history, but that's more of a sidebar for the sake of our class session. We're really going to park on Kitchen and Hendel going back and forth.